Hi everyone, I'm sheaty and you're watching Rise. It's nearly coming into the end of the year, which means we naturally start thinking about, talking about, hearing about New Year's resolutions, planning for the future, getting better, hopefully in January, or maybe you're still stuck trying to figure out what to buy people for Christmas, or maybe you're just thinking about Christmas presents. Whichever one it is, I want to start moving our conversation to that space of preparing for 2017, right? I've seen all these crazy memes, crazy gifs all about 2016, but 2017 is a fresh year, a fresh new year, which is not far away at all right now. And that's why today's conversation is all about creating a life of no regrets. I'm not going to dive into New Year's resolutions today, but we're talking about creating a life of no regrets. There's no rewind, there's no fast forward, pause or reset, right? We need to create a life of no regrets. Just imagine if we had a remote control, how cool it would be. You could press the rewind button, go back, change something. You could fast forward, see how your current action would look in the future. You could press pause when you really wanted to hold on to a moment. And you can press play whenever you wanted things to start again. I mean, that would be incredible, but we don't have that. Now, maybe technology will come around to a time of inventing something like that. But before that, it's so important that we ourselves learn to create a life of no regrets. Now, whether you're old or whether you're young or whether you don't like either of those terms and you prefer just having no impact of your age on your life, wherever you are, the truth is that we can all, at any stage in our life, create a life of no regrets. There's no limits. There's no impossibilities. There's no stopping point. There's not a point where from that point onwards, you don't have a chance. You always, always, always have a chance. I want to dive straight in to talk to you about how to create a life of no regrets. And I'm going to start with a question for all of you. I've got a scenario that I want you to answer. Now, this is taken from the book Stumbling on Happiness, and this is slightly adapted to make it easier for our conversation. But I'm going to give you two scenarios, and I want you to tell me which one you prefer. So, scenario one, you've got to pick one or two. Let me read both of them before you give me an answer. So you're going through some old boxes at home, and you find a bundle of savings bonds that your grandma purchased for you when you were a child, right? You think about cashing in and investing, but you're busy and it doesn't happen. So you found these things, you're thinking of cashing and investing on these bonds, you got so busy, you got wrapped up in Christmas, whatever it was, right? You didn't do that, and eventually, 2 years later, you find out that if you invested them, you would have made $1,000, right? Scenario one, you didn't invest, but if you would have, if you weren't so lazy, you would have made $1,000. Scenario one. Now I'm going to give you scenario two. Scenario two is you find these bonds. Your grandma's so sweet of her, she packed them away, but she left them somewhere else. You found them when you were unpacking some boxes. And this time, you were going to invest them in Company B. You decide to invest them, but in 2 years, you find out you made the wrong investment, and you realize that if you just left them as they were, then they would have still been worth $1,000. So in the second scenario, you actually mistakenly invested them in the wrong space. You didn't lose any money, you just invested them, but you realize if you would have just held on to them, you would have made $1,000. Scenario one or two, which one would you choose? In the first one, you are lazy, you don't do it, and you could have been $1,000 richer. Or in the second one, you invested wrongly, and you could have been $1,000 richer. Which one do you regret more? Which one do you think you would regret more? Imagine that happened to you. Maybe you've had similar things happen to you. Which one would you regret more? Now, research shows, right, this is incredible. In both scenarios, you made a mistake. The first one, your mistake was laziness. The second one, your mistake was putting it in the wrong place. The question is, which one causes you the most regret? Some of you said one, a lot more of you said two. Now, research shows that 9 out of 10 of us expect to feel more regret in scenario two when we invest wrongly, because we don't want to feel silly. We don't want to feel like we got it wrong. We don't want to feel like you invested money in the wrong place and you could have got some more. That's generally 9 out of 10 of us. That's how we feel more regret. That's how most of us feel regret in our lives. But here's what's the surprising thing. Most of us would be wrong, at least in the long term. See, research shows that we do have a short-lived regret for the dumb things we do, right? How many of you know something stupid you've done, feel regretful for? How many of you have ever had that before? Our short-term regret, believe it or not, research shows, fades quickly. It only lasts for like 2 weeks. The incredible thing is, the regrets of what we didn't do last for years. The regrets of the things we do wrong, the regrets of the things that are silly, the regrets of the mistakes we make fade away quickly. They last for 2 weeks. However, the regrets of things that we didn't do, they last for years. This is scientific research that goes into it in more depth. Now, they looked at it and they found that when they looked at a group of older people in their 70s, they found that 4 times as many people regretted what they didn't do as what they did do. 4 times as many people regretted what they didn't do. For those of you that chose option 1 as what you'd regret the most, actually shows that you're ready to start making a change. It's ready to start making a difference. You don't want to be lazy, which is incredible. If you chose option 2, that's how majority of the people think. But recognize how different it is. This is why we limit ourselves with that fear. We limit ourselves, like we don't want to make a mistake. We don't want to look silly. But in the long term, those are the things that hurt us the most. Now, I want to talk to you about what's happening in the brain. I want to talk to you about the cognition. So the interesting thing here is that regret is actually a negative state that involves blaming ourselves for a bad outcome, right? That's what regret is. We start blaming ourselves for something that didn't work out the way we wanted it to, whether we were involved, whether we made a mistake or not. Today, I want to analyze it. Today, I want to break it down. And today, I want to give you some tips on how we can create a life of no regrets. It's not easy. I may make it sound easy. We all know it's not simple. But the point is that it's important to do. It's harder to live with those regrets than it is to change our mindset. Recognize that from right now. Let me look at what you're saying. Nitin, my dad used to say that living with regrets was like driving a car that only moved in reverse. I love that. That's a great analogy. Things we didn't do are loaded with what ifs. Yes, totally. And that's the interesting thing about regret. When we start breaking it down, we take a look at this. So we find that early regret means an opportunity for early refocus. So regret actually plays a really powerful space in our lives. If you had a regret early on in life, if you had a regret in the last week, it allows you immediately, if you want to refocus, right? It's like sickness in the body. Your body's telling you when you don't feel well so that you can learn how to feel good again, so that you can start refocusing on your health again. Regret's the same thing. It's telling you that your soul, your mind doesn't feel well. It's not in its best condition. How can you refocus to feeling to be in its best condition? See, we do it with our bodies, we do it with our minds. Why not do it on a much deeper level as well? It's something that we've got to start doing. The interesting thing is they looked at the difference between genders. And the interesting thing about regret is that it's quite equal across genders. The only difference they found is that 44% of women had regrets about romantic reasons, right? About relationships, previous relationships. Only 19% of men had regrets around previous relationships. Again, an interesting thing to think about, that if we reflect on our own lives, if you're finding that steer, if you're finding that skew, it's a good sign that that actually exists in our gender biases that we have right there. And the cognitive bias of regret, it's easier to envisage a different outcome. That's the crazy thing about regret. Regret exists because it's so much easier to think it could have been better. Right? That's one of the reasons why regret exists, because we create this imaginary, sometimes illusory image of what could have been rather than what actually may have actually happened, right? It's allowing us that space. So how do you deal with it? How do we overcome it? Let me know if you've got any great ideas. I want you to share your ideas as well. What's something that you regret that you want to overcome, and how are you going to make that happen? Let me know in the comment section right now. Trusting people is always what I regret, says Kanza. Exactly. Go back and take a look at the session I did on trust, where I talk about layers of trust. What if the only option is to not do anything? Umair, I'm not sure that actually exists ever. Parita says, have unwavering faith that everything will work out just as it needs to. Always get something, everything you have, and you will never have regrets. When things don't work out, you only learn. It's totally true. One of the things that, when things don't work out, one of the things I've been telling myself and also thinking about a lot is, apart from the fact of learning, which we'll go into, is just that space of actually understanding that there may be a different route. See, we get so attached to having one route, one method, one way of working. We believe that there's only one pathway to where we want to be. There's this conveyor belt of things we have to do, whether it's, get a degree, find a partner, buy a house, play golf, whatever it is, like this conveyor belt of efficiency and productivity that we hear, that becomes a part of our natural progression. And when that breaks apart, that's when we start to worry. That's when we start to think. But notice that actually it's a lot better when that happens earlier in life. See, regret has some really important roles. The first one is that it helps us make sense of the world from our perspective for one of the first times. See, most of us have spent our lives learning what's important to us based on maybe what families taught, what communities taught, what parents taught, what education taught, whatever it is. When you start regretting something, when you think you did something wrong, when you start thinking that I could have done something differently, you're making sense of the world from your perspective. It's crazy how powerful this is, right? You're starting to make sense of the world from your perspective. The second thing is, it allows you to avoid future negative behavior. If you knew you regretted something, I guarantee you, write it down right now, right? If you regret something, write it down right now, because it will teach you so much in the future. And you've got to write down the lesson you learned now. Otherwise, next time when you think you're making another tough decision, you're going to say to yourself, oh, what did I do last time? How did I not make myself regret that? And then you're going to be upset. You're going to regret that you didn't write it down. So write it down right now. Now, I'm going to share with you a question that I truly believe you should answer. I've asked it a couple of times before, but I think there's a lot of you that may not have answered this question before. I'd like you to fast forward to 70, 80, 90 years old, right? Fast forward in your mind to that age. 70, 80, 90, 100, 110 if you're really optimistic, whichever one it is. And I'd like you to write down what will be the things that you'll regret that you didn't do. Imagine you're that age. Ask yourself the question, what will I regret that I didn't do? Not what you did do, but what you didn't do. Write it down. Make a long list right now. Get a pen and paper out and write it down. Don't do it on your phone. Don't do it on your laptop. Actually get a pen and paper and write down your answers. What will be the things that you regret that you didn't do? Right? Really think about it. Will it be, learning a new language? Will it be moving home? Will it be telling someone you love them? What will it be? What would it have been? Write it down right now. Now, the incredible thing about this question is that you're using the future to empower the past. Whatever answer you have in that question, whatever your answer is, you can do it right now, today, starting today, because you're not that age yet. And even if you're 64 and you're tuning in 70, 80, 90, you're still there, right? It's still possible. You can start doing that right now. It's empowering the present with the future. There is nothing stopping you from making it happen right now. You don't have to feel that way when you're 70. You don't have to feel that way when you're 80. You never, ever have to feel that way if you start doing it right now. And you can do it right now. Even if it feels impossible, you can start working on it right now. You can start trying right now. You can start making plans right now, because you're not there yet. And this is where you start. This is where you start making it happen. It's all in the now. And the amazing thing is that any past regrets you've had as well, you can change them now by gaining insight from them and making that change right now. And the reason why I'm talking so much about this is December is your month for transformation. People start setting their New Year's resolutions 3 days before, a week before, the 1st of January. Or some people even set them on the 1st of January, which is potentially the worst idea ever, because you definitely haven't woken up in the right state of mind. Now, whichever one you are, December's that month. You can start making that change right now. December's your month for planning, trying things out, experimenting. While everyone's winding down, getting ready for the break again, just finished Thanksgiving, getting ready for Christmas, you can start making a difference. You can start thinking about what you want to achieve in 2017. And the challenge with regret is that it's got loads of scientific research has been put into how much effect it has on your long-term well-being, mental health, right? Your feelings of positivity and optimism. It's something that we have to counteract, and the only way is to start doing them right now. Now, this is quite an extreme example, but I'm going to show you what that extreme example can look like, and I don't want you to take this, I want you to take it seriously, I just don't want you to be so overwhelmed by this, but it's an incredible story, and they found that they did research on this gentleman from Liverpool, which is in England. Maybe many of you have heard of it. Liverpool's where the Beatles came from. And Liverpool, this gentleman used to enter the lottery, right? And I don't know if you have something similar in America. I'm guessing you do. But, you pick your favorite numbers, and if your numbers come out that weekend, it's kind of like, you win loads of money. So this gentleman, he used to put in the same numbers. He had his lucky numbers He entered his lucky numbers in the draw every week and he was losing every week. One week, he forgot to enter his numbers. And guess what? That week, all his numbers turned up. He would have made millions, right? He would have made millions, or at least $1 million. This guy committed suicide, right? It's real. He actually committed suicide because he couldn't handle the fact that because he didn't do it, he missed out on all this money. And that missed opportunity, that which could have been. The reason why I'm giving this example is I hope none of you go off and do that at all. But the point is that that's what we can carry that feeling. And we can counteract that feeling today by not letting that happen to us, by not carrying that burden of regret or that baggage. It's like climbing a mountain with like 10 bags on your shoulders, right? But we can let go of regret by actually acting on things right now, whatever it is. You didn't finish a degree, you didn't tell someone something, you didn't travel somewhere. You can do that right now and save yourself from years of pain. Shauna, people tell me I'll regret not having children young, but who knows, maybe I'll never have children, or maybe I'll adopt older children. It's hard to picture what will be for an 80-year-old yourself. Yeah, definitely, it is difficult, but definitely try and think of it. And it's not about what other people think you will regret, right? It's definitely not about what other people think you will regret. It's focusing on yourself. And this is one of the reasons why we've got to kind of take away other people's expectations, because other people's expectations are one of the reasons why we get into regret in the first place. So definitely something to be careful of. The interesting thing is that advertisers harness the power of regret on us all the time. They tell us if we don't drink this drink, we won't feel as healthy. If we didn't go to the gym, we won't feel as effective or productive. We're always being weighed on. The challenge, or what we need to do, is channel that energy into actually making something happen right now. The way I do that, I'll give you an example of what I do. And I was helping a friend with a challenge they had the other day. Right, I was talking to them about a decision that they were trying to make in their career. How many of you have ever been at a crossroads in your career trying to figure out the next step? And she was talking to me, she was asking me for some advice, she was asking me for some guidance, and we were just going through this very casually. It wasn't a coaching session or anything like that. And I asked her, and this is a question that I regularly ask myself when I'm faced with really tough decisions. Right? Don't apply this to should I eat a chocolate fudge cake or should I eat that extra slice of pizza, because it may not apply. But apply it to the big decisions you make in life. And my question to her and my question to myself is, which one will you regret not doing? So when I'm making a big decision, I'll ask myself, will I regret not doing this? So let's say it's moving country. Let's say it's a job offer. Even if there's fear of it not working out. See, the question we usually ask ourselves is, which one's not going to work out? What if it doesn't work out? That's what we usually ask ourselves and make our decisions based on fear of fear, right? Most of us make our decisions based on the fear of fear. We think, I'm scared of something and I'm scared of it not working out, so I probably won't follow through with it. That saves you in the short term. The incredible thing is that hurts in the long term. Right? The real question to ask yourself is, which one am I going to regret that I did not follow through on? Which one's going to hurt me in the long run? Which one am I going to look back on and think, I wish I did that. I wish I had tried that. That's the one that you want to live for. Because that's the one that even if it doesn't work out, even if it doesn't go to plan, you're still going to be happy that you tried. You're still going to be happy that you did it. Because remember, we regret more what we didn't do than what we did do. What we did do dies after 2 weeks, if it's really bad 2 months, if it's at worst 2 years. But the regrets of what we didn't do can last a lot longer. Connect with that. Ask yourself that when you're making big decisions, ask yourself, what will I regret that I did not do? Which option will hurt the most in the long term? Andy says, I regret not saying thank you and I love you to my family members and what they've done for me. Well, that was going to be a point that I was going to make later on, but that's something really, really important to do. One of the biggest regrets people have is not telling the people that they love how they really feel, taking that moment to do that. So definitely something to do. Judith, to change is hard from a place of regret. Sometimes you feel afraid of making a decision because you cannot trust your own judgment, but you're never too old to try again. I'm finding out. Life is learning from mistakes. If I knew that sooner, I'd be less regretful. I love that. So that's a great life lesson there. Life is learning from mistakes. And you wish you knew that sooner. So anyone who's finding out right now, make sure you follow that. Grace, regret is living in a safety net but not catching any fish. Totally true. Abindu, we wouldn't have any deep stories without deep regrets. Totally true, Abindu. I really like that, because one of the things I always say to myself, when things don't work out, I always feel like when things will work out, this only makes the story better, right? It only makes your story more interesting. It only makes life more interesting. I remember someone saying to me that whenever something doesn't work out, shout out plot twist, right? It's like things are just taking a shift. Things are just going in a different direction and making you feel that they'll become more interesting. So when you look back, that story will sound better, it will be a lot more fun to tell, it will be a lot more of value. You'll feel where you've got to has had a much bigger impact in your life than if everything just rolled and flowed as you expected it to. Chetan, Jay, what about the regret that stays for life regarding a choice you made? Well, if that's the case, change that choice. See, it's never too late to change a choice. We kind of have this view that if we made a choice, it lasts forever. It doesn't last forever, because all you have to do is rechange it. Now, you may not be able to change what happened. You may not be able to change how it affected another person, but you can change how you deal with it. So it's not something, never feel that there's something that can't be changed. Even if it can't be changed in experience, it can be changed in mental experience. You can't change something in the physical space, but you can change how you deal with things emotionally. That's something that you can always do. So don't write that off ever, Chetan, right? I hope that answers your question. Remember one thing, we all have regrets. We all have things that we wish we did differently. But just know that anytime it is, engage that thought straight away in making a change right now. Whatever you regret, confront it now by trying to impact it through some change, right? That's the most powerful thing. Harness the functional aspects of it. What can you learn? What can you grow from? What are the insights? Don't take too much blame. Don't be too hard on yourself. That's one of the reasons why we become stagnant. We actually put too much pressure on ourselves. And it's very natural. And one of the things I'm sharing all this scientific research for is to make you realize you're not alone. You're not the only one out there feeling this way. See, the 6 biggest regrets of people in life, the 5 are education, number 1, career, number 2, romance, number 3, parenting, number 4, and then the self-development, number 5. These are the top 5. If any of yours fit into that 5, recognize you're not alone, right? We're all in that boat together. And the amazing thing is 4, right, of them are due to inaction. Most of our regrets are based on inaction, and therefore action is the only way, and action continually. So you may say, I did an action, but I've regretted the action. Continually take another action. That is the only process of solving regret. That is the only process. Recognize that. Just if you take one thing away from this session today, recognize that continual, consistent action, learning an action, redefining an action, rethinking an action, right, is the only way to remove all regrets from our life. Even when you regret what you did do, what you didn't do, whichever one it is, that is the only way. And if you've done education as regret, career, romance, parenting, self, you're in the same boat, right? And here are some questions I wanted to end on that I recommend you ask yourself. How could it have been worse? Right? How could it have been any worse? What could have actually gone wrong? Second is, what can I do now? Right? Really ask yourself, what can I do now? And when making that decision, ask which one are you most likely to regret? You have to answer that question. I really want you to feel motivated, right? We want to create a life of no regrets. We start with our regrets. We confront them. We start looking at the bigger decisions by actually thinking more long-term than short-term. In the short term, you're going to be worried about how you look. In the short term, you're worried about what people think of you. In the short term, you're going to be worried about what are people going to say about me. You know, in the long term, none of that's going to matter. In the long term, you're not going to be worried about any of those things. In the long term, you're going to be more worried about the things that you did not do. Right? In the long term, you're going to be worried more about the things that you did not do. I really hope that's helped you today. Remember, there's no pause, there's no reset. We need to create that life of no regrets. I hope that you've connected with today's topic. A few takeaways for all of you today is just recognize that it's most surprising because we think we're going to regret the things that we did do. You're more likely to regret the things that you did not do, right? Let your loved ones know that you love them. Let them know that you know that more often. Follow your dreams and passions. Recognize that afterwards that will weigh on you. And go with what's closest at the time. Go with what's closest to your heart, your intuition. Remember that regret is actually useful. It's a change engine. It helps you make sense of the world, avoid future negative behaviors, gain insights. And recognize the reason why we have to challenge it is because long term it can have negative effects on us as well. But you can make a change right now. Fast forward till you're 80, reflect on what you can change, what you're going to be regretting, and start doing it today. Start doing it on Monday. Start doing it in December. Invest in December to be the month of transformation so you can have an awesome 2017. If you have just tuned in for the first time today, give a like to the HuffPost Rise Facebook page so you get a notification every time we're live. And give a like to me on Facebook as well. I'm at sheaty IW. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Take care wherever you are. Have an awesome day.